So we have our leader stats board. It's up and running, but it's not reflecting the number of deaths that we've had in our game. And so what we need to do now is to have a script that runs and it checks the number of times that the player has died. So where are we going to put that script? Well, we need the script to run every time the player respawns onto the game. So when he spawns in the very beginning, when you first play, it should run. When you die, it should run. So every time you die and you respawn, it should run. And so we're thinking, where should we put it? And so luckily we have this folder in starter player called starter character scripts, and any script you put in here will run every time the player has spawned. Okay, so this is where we're going to put it. So we'll right click, insert object. It's going to be a local script because this information should only be checked on the player's computer. Right, if it can be checked on the player only on the client's computer, it should be checked on the client's computer, because you don't want to be putting scripts on the server that don't need to be there, or else it'll slow down the game. Okay, so let's go ahead and say insert object local script, and here we want to get the player, which is pretty easy in a local script. All you need to do is say local player is equal to game.players.localPlayer. Good, we got the player, and now we want to write a script that's going to run every time the player spawns, and that's pretty easy too. You get the character of the player, and you wait for child, the humanoid of the character, and we put .died. Okay, so this is going to fire off every time the player has died, and so we'll say connect. And this is going to be the function that we're going to run when that happens. Make sure your code is exactly the same as mine. And right now I'm going to put here died. Okay. And so let's go ahead and run this and see if it actually works. And then bam, it prints out. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and do it again. And then it prints out. So we're good to go, right? We have the code that we want, or the script that we want, and now we want to adjust our leader stats that's up in the top right corner. So you might be tempted to go ahead and say player.leaderstats.oomph value is equal to its previous value plus 1, right? What we're doing here is incrementing the leader stats oomph value by 1. But this, if you go ahead and publish to Roblox, is not going to work, and you'll be like, why not? Well, it's because our data store service leader stats is on the server. Our player leader stats leader stats folder is also on the server. This script that we just made is a local script. It is happening here on the client. Okay. So any changes to player.leaderstats here on the client does not affect the player.leaderstats over here on the server, and that's what we need to do. We need to affect this one here. Okay, so this is not going to work. And if you think back to Gold Rush, right, how did we make a script in a local script affect what was on the server? Right. Well, what we did is we checked if the dialogue was selected, and that can only be done in a local script. So we had that done here on the client, and when that happened, we fired off a remote event that was in replicated storage. When that remote event was fired off, we had a script here in server script service that was waiting for that event to fire. And when it did fire, it did what we wanted it to do, namely increment this value in the player on the server, right? Which it could because it is a server script, okay, a regular script. So that's what we're going to do here. And yeah, I think we have enough time. So let's go ahead and do that now. The first step to this would be to go to replicated storage, right click it, insert object, and add a remote event. We're going to rename this to be oomph remote event. What's next is we're going to need to add a server script, insert object, the regular script, and we're going to call this oomph script, or maybe we call it oomph count script. And so over here in oomph count, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste the code that I have here on the side. And so what are we doing here? We are getting the replicated storage service. We are waiting for this remote event that we just made. And when that remote event is fired off, when the oomph remote event is fired off, it is going to run this function. Okay. And what do we want to do when it runs this function? We want to increment the oomp's value right here, which we now can do because now this is a script that's running on the server. Okay, it's a regular script, not a local script. So we have that part. And now over here on the local script, all we need to do is go ahead and copy these 2 lines of code from oomph count script, right? These 2 guys. Come here into our local script, paste it on the top. And right here, we're not going to be doing that because we don't have the power to in a local script. Instead, we're going to remote fire server. Okay, so what is this doing? This is going to fire off that remote event here, which this script is waiting for, and then this one is going to increment our leader stats board. So let's go ahead and set up our game now to use the data store service. You're going to need to come here to mod home, click on game service or game settings, options, and make sure this is on and this is on. This one here being on is critical. This allows you to access game services like data store. If you don't have this on, it's not gonna work. Okay, just not gonna work. So go ahead, turn those 2 on. We'll file, publish to Roblox. Now let's come over here and play, and let's see if we have a connection between our player and the leader stats board. So we're checking up here on the oomphs. I die, the oomphs go up. That's great, right? Now let's leave the game, come back in, and our oomphs should be at 1. And there we go, it's at 1. Okay, so go ahead and put that together, and I will see you in the next